Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Welcome back to the Cincinnati Green Building Tour Series, which is hosted by Chuck Lorre in partnership with us, USGBC Ohio, and sponsored by the Sustainability Partnership of Cincinnati, and also sponsored by David Smith, Solar Energy Solutions, and Third Sun Solar. So thank you. Here's a quick look at our today's agenda. We're going to start with housekeeping, partner overview, sponsors and resources. Then we'll do design insights and technical insights for the tour, and we'll wrap up with some future events. First, if you could please do mute yourself while people are speaking. You can also introduce yourself in the chat, give us your name, title, company, location. You can also post your questions at any time during the chat, and as appropriate, Chuck will be monitoring those and asking them of our speakers. And we'll be recording this session, so a recording in the PowerPoint will be put on the website. So really quickly, my name is Mary Ellen Etienne. I'm the director of USGBC Ohio, and we are so pleased to be working with our presenters in this Green Building Tour Series and to host the virtual platform and serve as promotional partners as well. USGBC is changing the way buildings and communities are designed, built, and operated. Here is some of the things that we're working together on in Ohio. We have well over 4,000 LEED certified projects in the state, which represents about 150 million square feet. Two of our top bragging rights in the state is that we're #1 globally in LEED schools, thanks to the leadership of Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. And we're also #7 nationally in LEED homes, and thanks in partnership with the city of Cincinnati and their amazing tax abatement program. We see a very strong green building network here as a result. So thanks for coming today. And now I'll pass it over to our tour host, Chuck Lorre of Lorre and Associates.
Well, hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to the tour. We've been doing these since 2014. Our sponsors are the Sustainability Partnership of Cincinnati. It's a group of companies that offer services and products, and I'll go through each one of them. So Green Bow is Steve Hampton and Tony Beck. That's Steve's house on Walnut Street that we toured. And the Green Building Consulting is a lead rater in town, and they help you do residential certifications for the city of Cincinnati. And important thing is you need to talk to a green rater first thing if you're considering about building a home in Cincinnati. This is my business. I do commercial LEED documentation. I had a LEED Platinum office in Cincinnati. Greener Stock is Heather Curlis. She'll offer sustainable flooring, cabinets, tiles, countertops for your home. Green Streets and Live Roof of Cincinnati is Ben Haggerty. This is the courtyard at the City Hall. One Small Garden is Julian Gardner. She makes above ground planters out of native cedar and outbuildings and chicken coops. Pattern Concrete of Cincinnati is very popular with the sustainable building for the thermal mass. Tepe Services will help you do adaptive and native landscapes and smart irrigation. David Smith is with us today on the tour. He's a specialist in green homes, and he'll help you navigate the best sustainable homes in Cincinnati. Solar Energy Solutions is a regional solar panel supplier. Julie Jones and Cy Mashley can help you with that. Third Sun Solar is another solar provider in Cincinnati area, had a long history in the state of Ohio. So I'd like to welcome Scott Robbins and Andrea Robbins, the owners of Urban Stead Cheese. This is so exciting to have a LEED, another LEED project in Cincinnati for commercial. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. And thank you to everybody that's on the call today. And thank you for highlighting our project. We really appreciate it. And we're excited to be Silver LEED certified. It was a huge accomplishment for us. And really, so I'm going to talk about our mission. So when we talk about Urban Stead Cheese, Scott and I always think about Cheddar for the better. It's kind of the overriding umbrella, that it's the litmus test that we run everything through in our decision making. When we set out to create a cheese company, it was our goal to produce world-class artisanal cheese here in the Cincinnati area and partner with like-minded organizations while doing so. When we look at local, usually local is about 100-mile radius. We distribute quite a bit further than outside a 100-mile radius, but that's really our heavy focus. We at the core of who we are, we're cheesemakers. We make our cheese here in Cincinnati, obviously, but then we also have a local retail shop here at the same location. People can come in and purchase cheese and a lot of other items, wine, beer, local accompaniments. We have farm-raised products, but then it's a learning platform. There's not a lot of cheese making here in Cincinnati, as you know. If we were in California or Vermont or Wisconsin, I think that people would be really familiar with cheese making, but they aren't necessarily here in Cincinnati. And so we wanted to provide a transparent environment where we could explain why artisanal cheese and how cheese is made and why you would choose, a cloth-bound cheddar versus a more processed cheese. So we've peeled back the layers and provided a window into cheese making, literally. So we had a few requirements for doing our project. And Scott, you want to talk about that?
Well, we wanted to be in the city of Cincinnati. I think that was, we couldn't do a true urban creamery without being in the city. So I think that was very important. We wanted to reuse an existing building. I think that was very important to us. We wanted to stay away from new construction. We looked at up and coming neighborhoods that we could help make an impact in. But we had some restrictions too. We also were looking for 8,000 to 10,000 square feet. Had to have milk access. We preferred a parking lot.
And we preferred to own. To do this level of investment in a building that we did not own didn't make sense. And Scott, I would challenge you, looked at 75 buildings over a 1.5 to 2 year period. And this is where we found the before picture is probably, I think it's from about 2008. We bought the building in 2016. It's the old East Walnut Hills Medical Clinic. And it was a gem, as you can see. It had sat vacant for
a little over 10 years. It had been squatted in. It was in rough shape, but what we saw was a beautiful shell that just needed to be revived.
Yeah. And, it was a big thing for us too. If we had bought a really complete and nice building, there's a lot of unique equipment that we'll talk about later in the presentation that we had to install in this building. And so let's say we had bought a perfect building. We didn't think it made sense to buy that and then rip all the HVAC and all the plumbing out. Well, we needed very specialized equipment. So again, a vacant building for us worked really well. If you're not familiar with our location, we are a 1/4 mile north of St. Francis de Sales Church, we're literally on the border of East Walnut Hills and Evanston, depending on what map you look at from the city. Our construction process, we utilized, our GC was Terex, and that was a long-term relationship that already had existed. And so they were a fantastic construction partner for us. And obviously the after picture is very different. We took the facade off. I mean, I have to say, I did not have this vision. Scott had this vision. When we came to this building, I thought, we're going to do what here? And so I'm really, really pleased with how this building turned out. and I think it's a neighborhood asset. While we were doing this, it was also, while we recognized that we wanted to make an impact in an up and coming neighborhood, we're also very, very aware and conscientious of any gentrification and being a good community partner. And so that's part of, we'll talk about, I'm ready for the next slide when you are, Mary Ellen. We wanted to do, why did we choose to do LEED certification? We've talked about the tax abatement at the beginning of this presentation, and that is, for us, it's a huge benefit. We have a 15-year, 75% tax abatement. I would challenge that that's 100% tax abatement, but as everyone knows, there is no 100% tax abatement because you will always pay the 25% to the school. And so, we're pleased to do that. I happily write that check to the school. But from that perspective, this was a very good economic purchase for us of this building, and to be able to do a 75% tax abatement for 15 years really, really helps our numbers. But we also, everything we do goes back to Cheddar for the Better. As we make this cheese, you're seeing pictures of the cheese making. We want to reduce our footprint, and we want to increase our community impact. And LEED certification was a no-brainer when we looked at the different options for how we get a tax abatement. And then when we found out we could do silver LEED certification, it was an ace in the hole for us. So everything we do, we're really, really keenly aware of being a good neighborhood partner, and LEED certification certainly lends to that. A quick note about cheese making. We source our milk from, you want to talk about that, Scott? Scott's the cheesemaker, so I'll let him do a quick overview of cheese making.
So yeah, you see kind of different pieces of our puzzle that we call cheese making, but we source our milk from a local dairy farm about 45 miles east of the city. A wonderful third generation, all Jersey herd, great family. We go straight to the farm, pick up the milk, we bring it back to our facility, pump it into our tank, and then use it accordingly from there. We make all our cheeses handmade here. We try to create old world style cheeses with old techniques, just using modern equipment. Very hands-on, very labor intensive. But I think that the taste and the quality of cheese that you can achieve this way is incredible. And people are finding that for us.
Yeah. And we have such a high level of respect for the dairy industry. Both Scott and I are grandchildren of dairy farmers. My uncles still dairy farm. My cousins grew up dairy farming. So to find a third generation dairy farm this close to the city that has Jersey cow milk, which is really, as a cheesemaker, it's the best kind of milk that you can be dealing in. It's the highest butter fat, it's the highest proteins. And for us, that means really good cheese. It also means higher yields. So I feel really lucky to have found this situation and to have the flexibility we don't take all of their milk, but the milk we do take is incredible. Most of their milk goes to a co-op in West Virginia, and it gets bottled for fluid milk, but they are gracious enough to allow us to take what we need for cheese making. So what you're seeing on the left is Scott cutting the curd on 3,000 pounds. That's our cheese vat, our main cheese vat. It's 3,000 pounds of milk in there. And that went to make cheddar, which is the picture up above. That's us making our cloth-bound cheddar. Our cloth-bound cheddar is comprised of 25 pounds of cheese curd. So that's a really labor-intensive process, as Scott indicated. And then back to the transparency and really peeling back the windows. We created windows into cheese making as well as into the aging rooms. And it helps serve as an education point and talk about, for the first 6 months of being open, we didn't have any of our aged cheeses. And so we were able to point to those in the aging rooms and talk about why those cheeses needed to age. And so it served as a really good educational platform. And that's Scott with a finished truckle of our street ched, which is our aged cloth-bound cheddar. And when I talk about a cloth-bound cheddar, it truly has cloth around the outside. So in the picture to the right of myself, you can see the cloth off, and that's the cheddar underneath. Some more beautiful pictures. That's our Gouda in the picture on the left on the bottom, our Tome de Evanston. That's a fun cheese. So Tome is, you want to talk about what Tome is and why we named it that?
So yeah, Tome is our wash drying cooked curd cheese that we've created, very similar to the cheeses in the Swiss or the French Alps. One of my favorite Tomes is Tome de Savoie. So it's kind of roughly modeled after that. Tomes in France Tome is a French term for small farmhouse wheel. And a lot of the tomes in France are named after the areas that they are created. And this is kind of our homage to Evanston, so it's our Tome de Evanston. And it's a wonderful melter, very elegant, wonderful cheese, great melter. Yeah, chefs love that cheese.
These were some photos taken for Ohio Magazine. Gina Weathersby did a photo shoot on local Ohio cheesemakers. And so those were highlighted. And then Quark for us is a really, really special cheese. We were talking about it this morning that Quark, or as they would say in Germany, Quark, is a German farmer's cheese. It's going to be the texture of, say, cream cheese, ricotta, or a fromage blanc, but it's a German Eastern European staple of cheese. And gosh, we see this used all across the city, whether it be in a beer cheese at Catch a Fire at Mad Tree, or in a borson, like a house borson. It's just an incredibly versatile cheese. And then of course our cheese curds, which have become a Cincinnati cult cheese. They were named Best of the City to Cincinnati Magazine's Best of the City last year in their Best of the City article. And so all of the cheeses that you see, guys, are available for purchase in our shop. And you can get one of those beautiful cheese boards. Our tasting room is not currently open for dine-in. We will reopen in the coming months. Our team is working through round 2 of vaccinations, which is really, really exciting. But as it currently stands, you can grab a to-go cheese board, just like the one pictured here. And you can grab a bottle of wine. In addition to Scott being our head cheesemaker, he is also a certified sommelier. And so it's we have a really, really fun wine selection here at the shop. And you can take that to go along with a lot of wonderful other things. And then of course, the picture on the right is a fast forward to when we are serving cheese boards in the tasting room again. And then Mary Ellen, the next slide to your point is some of our catering boards. So it's a neat opportunity when we get to help people celebrate small and large occasions of any kind with cheese boards. And we do catered cheese boards. So that's something you can always call and we can help you custom craft. And that it's just really special that every ounce of cheese that we serve in the shop and on those cheese boards is cheese that Scott and the team have made here at the shop. And then of course the tasting room, this was a good memory. We look forward to welcoming people back into the tasting room. So we have a full liquor license, beer, wine, and liquor. We serve cheese boards alongside a cheese-centric menu here in our tasting room. And it's been great I think this might have actually been an event. So it's been a great community space for us and a great neighborhood hub that I look forward to reopening. And then Mary Ellen, yeah. So this is not really, this goes back to Cheddar for the Better, and it's always important for me to talk about this. However, it does not contribute to our LEED points, but it is critically important to what we do and how we think. And so friends of ours started the nonprofit Queen City Pollinator Project last year. And when I found out that they were looking for locations to host urban beehives, it was that was a no-brainer. And so if you look at the beehives, the picture on the left, the beehive to the left is Doris Day, and Bootsy Collins is on the right. And both Bootsy Collins and Doris Day originate in Evanston. And so they were aptly named. And then that's one of our wonderful beekeepers on the right. A little side note on that, and I don't think probably anybody in this call or in this group needs any education on how critically important our pollinators are and also how fragile they are. We lost our bees in November of last year. They absconded the hive, and that was likely due to poisoning from pesticides. And it has been such a fantastic educational discussion and opportunity for us, but also with our customers. You know, when we share with people that the bees can travel 3 to 4 miles and so they can pick up pesticides from anywhere within that distance. And I think that our customers are a lot more pollinator knowledgeable and friendly as a result of this effort. And it's been really, really exciting. At the height of last summer, we had 100,000 bees in the hives behind the shop. And we will get our new bees, if not sooner, on April 21st. So I'll hand it over to Seoul Design and Consulting, who was the firm that gracefully took us through our LEED certification process.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Andrea and Scott, thank you again for hiring us to do the LEED certification on this. I think I'll talk a little bit about uniqueness about the project from our standpoint, but at the time when Scott stopped by my office with this project, as excited as we were about doing our first cheese facility, which we didn't know what to do, it was uncharted territory. But at the same time, I had mentioned that, LEED had just transitioned from version 3 to version 4. And that was uncharted territory also at the same time. So this is a pioneering project in multiple ways than you may realize, even from the green building certification standpoint. So thank you for giving us the opportunity and staying along with the process and helping us finish it for you and finish it for us, which was a long process. Mary Ellen, Chuck, thank you to GBCI for, doing these tours, which are fantastic for, increasing awareness for green certifications in our sustainability community. Just a quick introduction about Seoul Design Consulting. We provide green building certifications and sustainability consulting for commercial and residential projects. I have Chris Dwyer, who's our VP of Energy, and I have Nate Stieber, who's our Director of Certification with me. They're going to go into the details about the project a lot more than I am. And a lot of our business is driven by the tax abatement. And when Andrea was talking about it, like, why did we do LEED? I think the tax abatement itself is like the only reason that even if that was the only reason, it's a good reason to do it. It is meant to be a vehicle to drive sustainability, because otherwise it becomes hard to have those conversations. How do we make project system sustainable? And if it can be an economic benefit to the city, economic benefit to the businesses and the surrounding neighborhood, then it's really serving its purpose, which it is doing that. The other couple of things that are unique about this project, one, it's the first, for us, it was the first LEED for Homes version 4 project. Scott touched on the fact that it's an existing building renovation, which are very unique. When we are doing a renovation of existing building, there are certain challenges that come with it. But at the same time, from a sustainability standpoint, it is really makes the project more sustainable. All that embodied energy went into reusing or creating that building for the first time around. It gets reused without having to bring new materials. So there is that environmental benefit of reusing an existing building, which makes it sustainable inherently. And the catalyst for the neighborhood that you talked about, that it's one of the businesses that bravely made the step of opening the business up there. serving as a catalyst for a neighborhood is also a sustainable benefit for the city and the region also. And the third uniqueness, which I mentioned already, is that it's a cheese making facility, which was new to us in terms of understanding the processes. I'm going to hand it over to Nate, I think, who can talk broadly about certification first. He's our director of certification, and then Nate can hand it over to Chris to go into the details of the energy analysis and how the cheese making process aligns with the energy analysis that we did for LEED certification. So thank you all. Nate, I'll hand it to you.
Great, thanks, Sanyal. One thing I do want to point out, I think you said LEED for homes in there, but this is not a homes project. It was a LEED commercial project version 4 in our first version 4 for our firm. This, just a very brief overview of where we got the points, or where the project got the points in order to get to silver certification. And you can see we just made it in with the 50 points. That's the very minimum you need for silver. So it wasn't without its struggles, but we'll get into that in a minute. You can see it's a pretty well-rounded point system, with the exception of sustainable sites. That was one of our challenges there. But we did try to focus in every area to align with the mission that Scott and Andrea wanted to do, not just for the tax abatement, but for a well-rounded LEED project, sustainable project. You could go ahead and go to the next slide, Mary Ellen. So this is getting into the details a little bit of what exactly the points were for the project. There are two big credits that we focused on, and something that we tend to focus on, which makes it a little bit easier for projects, which is water and energy. Water is one of the indoor water use is one of those low-hanging fruits that you can really excel at it easily by just picking out fixtures that are the lowest flow possible. So we definitely focused on that for this project. And then, of course, energy, which is always a big point getter for any project that you work on. And I know Chris will get into that in a little bit here. As with any project, there are always challenges. One thing, and I think Sanyag actually touched on most of this, is the new rating system version 4. Starting October 31st of 2016, I believe it was mandatory to register under version 4 projects. And I think Scott actually contacted us a few weeks after that. So we couldn't get under the old rating system, which may have been a little easier, but we still got there nonetheless, even though there were a few bumps in the road along the way. Sustainable sites, as I mentioned, we got 0 points in that category. We only met the prerequisites. While we did have an existing building, and that's something true to our heart at Seoul, is rehabbing buildings and using the existing ones there instead of new construction. It's not without its challenges. The existing pavement was all there. The project didn't really touch a whole lot of landscaping except for the front. The existing building, while it is great, there are other challenges without altering any of it. So we weren't able to get many of those sustainable sites. Same thing with location and transportation. Obviously, if you're looking for an existing building, you could be limited on what you could choose. We still got some points in that category, but less than what is really desirable when you're going for a LEED rating system. But you can see there's a little bus stop there on that screenshot, so they did get some of those points for them. How did we get to silver? As I mentioned, maximizing our water and energy points, those are the easy ones to go for. But really, we had to fully dive in and understand what it is about, the cheese production process and how we can explain to USGBC that we qualify for those points with this building, even if we're doing it in a little different way. And one of the struggles we ran into was lighting and thermal comforts. I'm not going to be an expert on cheese making, but you do need very specific temperatures, very specific humidity. Light could even be a concern. So when we're going and telling USGBC, well, we can't meet that thermal comfort level for the regular occupant, but we do keep it at a very specific temperature. And when they're making their cheese, they're wearing very specific clothes to make sure that they are comfortable. And in the end, USGBC agreed, and they're like, yeah, that does make sense. You are worthy of getting those points. So we found that along the way for a lot of different requirements within the LEED rating system, but it's just a matter of understanding the building and how can we work a program of LEED to fit that building. LEED version 4.1. So this was one of our first version 4, and soon thereafter USGBC released the 4.1 rating system, and some of those credits get a lot easier. And it's really understanding what credits in version 4 are better, or if we can substitute and use other ones. So in this case, we actually got 3 or 4 points by using the newer requirements, because transit, reduced parking, low emitting materials are substantially easier in the new rating system. So just having an understanding that you can use that to your advantage when possible. And then lastly, very maximizing your innovation points. We wanted to try a few of what Andrea and Scott, talked about. I think they at their hearts, they really are sustainable people and have sustainable processes, and they're worthy of a lot of innovation. But convincing USGBC of innovation isn't like some of the other credits, and it usually has a cost with it that may not pay off in the end. So we did have to rely on other ones that were available to them, to any project, which lighting, sustainable wastewater, green building education. And you can see they've got this big cheese board with their LEED facts. If you look in their camera, you can actually see it behind them right there. It's actually a really cool feature that they have. So this is just a rendering. It's not the picture of the actual one that they have there. So. And then, just some highlights, reduction of wastewater in addition to indoor water use. I'm not sure if too many of our LEED professionals are aware, but there is I think it's an innovation credit where if you reduce your toilet and urinal water substantially below a baseline, you can get an extra point there, in addition to all the ones you get in the typical indoor water use category. Andrea and Scott bought green power. So for the first 5 years that they're in their building, 100% of their energy and carbon emissions are offset. They reuse the structure, as we talked about. Construction waste. So during the project, they had the general contractor diverted waste from the landfills. And then their VOCs, their emissions are through the roof. The paints, coatings, insulation, wall panels, flooring, all of them very low VOC and third-party certified. Next slide, please, Mary Ellen. And I think I'll hand it off, Chris, to you to talk about the energy.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so as Andrea and Scott were saying, there's not a lot of Cincinnati knowledgeable people about cheese. So we really had to train up ourselves on the cheese making process. And unlike a lot of LEED projects, LEED is a way to certify a building. There's other certifications, of course, but and buildings are kind of thought of as the hardware, and what happens inside the building is software. And traditionally, and maybe in older versions of LEED, they're like, just assume what happens in the building takes up 25% of the energy, and you're not allowed to claim a credit for it. And we were kind of, bumping our heads against the wall, like, well, holy cow, this is pasteurization we're talking about. This is an energy intensive process. From what little I know about it, I know it takes a lot of energy, just like, brewing beer, as Andrea was saying. So we had to work with a consultant who also consulted for Scott and Andrea, and he's known in the industry as the cheese doctor. And so we would have a lot of late night conversations with the cheese doc, not late night, but, I think he's from New Zealand, works in St. Louis or something, but he was teaching us about the pasteurization process. And just like every LEED project, there's a little bit of coulda, shoulda, woulda once it's all completed, because there was a lot of opportunity seized in this project, in the thinking through of the building itself, the hardware, but also the software, which is the operations and the people and how they use that space and all of the systems within that space. So here we've got a picture of Louis Pasteur. He's kind of the father of the study of microbes. And this is a relationship with teeny tiny things that are almost magical that make the cheese even possible and delicious. So I've got this graph here that basically shows our energy model. We claimed a 20% energy savings benefit. And, if any other project we're pursuing LEED, version 4 certification, very quickly, the opportunity is lighting and envelope. So of course, you know, we claimed a bunch of credit for lighting, but I think there are 4 unique, and lighting is not exactly unique in claiming credit for it. Of course, we did claim credit, and the project deserved credit there, but I think it's really interesting how this project has 4 very unique energy saving opportunities. So Mary Ellen, could you go to the next slide, please? So this picture right here, this is the vat, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Scott and Andrea, but this is the 3,000 pound vat where the milk comes in, you know, refrigerated milk, or maybe it's 38 degrees Fahrenheit, and you have to pasteurize that, because if you've got, well, I don't want to go into the theory of cheese making, but you got to heat it up and then you got to cool it down. And that takes so much energy that this bit of equipment is a little bit like an ERV, like an energy recovery ventilation system for the air, except this recovers energy from the milk. So that's really cool. And, you know, that expression, like, how do you blow off steam? Well, this is not exactly a factory with a smokestack where you're blowing off steam, but there is a lot of waste heat. So some of that waste heat, how do we not waste it? Well, we use it to preheat the milk, and we'll use it to cool down the stuff that's being wasted. And this process would have required a 14-ton chiller or air conditioning system. And there was a way to reduce that from 14 tons down to 7 tons, which was really cool. So I'll kind of talk about that on the next slide, if you could go to that, Marianne. So you're looking at multiple things here. Scott, technically, what is this room called? Is this the aging room?
It's an aging room, yes.
It's an aging room. Can we just for curiosity's sake, what is that cheese there? Is that Gouda?
That is
Cheddar?
Gouda, yep. So,
okay, yeah. So what you're looking at, those silver walls, I'm going to start with the bottom. That's the kick-ass envelope. So an existing building with kind of a shell, this shell was improved because it's a clean room. We've got a big portion of the building has to be super clean, like FDA approved, very delicate balance with the microbes, with the indoor environmental temperature, humidity, air quality. So that clean room is basically, was erected on the inside, and it's super insulated, like high R value. I think it's like R30 walls. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that gave us a huge benefit on the heating consumption. So we save a bunch of energy on the heating by virtue of having this special clean room. In addition, what you see at the top there at the ceiling is a mechanical system that is not like a normal air conditioning system. This modulates the refrigerant, and I don't want to geek out too much about it, but it modulates the airflow and it modulates the temperature of the cooling refrigerant, so that, you know, most human beings, no, I take that back. Every single human being finds that they've got a comfort in a bandwidth of humidity of 40 to 60%. And that's human culture for you. But we're not talking about human culture. We're talking about microbe culture. And their bandwidth for humidity is not 40 to 60%. It needs to be like precisely regulated humidity. And correct me if I'm wrong, Scott and Andrea, but don't these have to like age at certain cheeses at like 80% humidity and other cheeses at 82% humidity?
Yeah, we've got one set at 85 and the other one at 92.
And another one
Yeah,
set
so that,
at what's like 54. So it's every cheese is really uniquely different, to your point.
yeah, so the cheese personality comes from this like delicate relationship that we're able to control here with these dry coolers. So you could go to the next slide. And then this was the one where I guess a little bit of background about LEED is you basically have to present your case to the technical folks up at the LEED, you know, in Washington, D.C., or, you know, wherever their consultants are. And you have to really know your stuff when you say, we're going to claim a bunch of energy savings for processes. And in talking with Scott and Andrea, like, these are entrepreneurs and they have a big vision. And you say, well, how much of the process are you going to be doing? Like, how many, you know, how many loads of cheese are going to be shipped per day? How many gallons of milk will there be per day? How many employees? How many hours per day? And of course, pie in the sky, this is going to be running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's going to be cheese, 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 cheese. That's the goal. But year one, I don't know, month one, we're not quite sure. So our approach with USGBC is to be conservative and to make some conservative assumptions that we can really stand by. And one of the energy saving opportunities was what they call the SIP-SOP system. And for anybody who's had a glass of milk, and well, my dishwasher's broken right now, so if I were to have a glass of milk, I would have to rinse it by hand. And you can't just put water in your empty glass of milk and have milk residue just be gone. Like, milk is filled with fats and proteins that are really hard to clean. So, this is FDA like approved facility. So you have to be really good about cleaning. And the conventional method uses a bunch of chemicals and a bunch of hot water. And this sort of table here, you have to rinse, you use a caustic, you use a rinse, you use an acid, you use a rinse, and then you sanitize. And the SIP-SOP system, the SIP stands for clean in place. So it's basically a glorified dishwasher that cleans all the materials used in the cheese making process. And there are 3 opportunities where we were able to claim hot water savings. And so all of our LEED points don't even take into consideration the water saved. As Nate was kind of bragging about earlier, we saved a lot of water in this project, but it doesn't even include the water saved here, and not just the water, but the hot water. So we're estimating 363 gallons per day of hot water. And that hot water comes from natural gas, which you see the hot water tank up on the upper left. So we were pretty proud of this. This was one of those things that we were able to hang our hat on. And in that whole spirit of coulda, shoulda, woulda, Scott and Andrea, we would love to sort of monitor, not only the track the trajectory of your business, how many batches of cheese you make per day, per year, but like what your energy consumption profile looks like when it spikes, what the overall consumption is on a yearly basis, monthly basis. It get really granular to the daily and the hourly energy consumption. I think that would be just really nerdy information for people like us in the LEED world and people in the cheese industry and the brewing industry. It was just completely satisfying to us. And maybe the final thing I'll say is that my wife and I own a business on the same street as Andrea and Scott, and they've been great neighbors. We've hosted a number of parties and used their charcuterie boards, and they've given us gift certificates for raffles and stuff that we've had. So thank you very much. And I would renounce my veganism. Whenever I have the opportunity to eat their cheese, I do, even though I'm like quasi-vegan, because it's that good.
Well, thank you, Chris. Yeah, that was really, it was going down memory lane for us. I know we've certified this for a while now. So Mary Ellen, we'll hand it back to you.
Thank you all. And Chuck, you want to unmute yourself as well? And
Yes. Well, that was fantastic presentation. I'm really looking forward to the recording and promoting it. I'm sure that we'll get a lot of views from cheesemakers all over the world. So the next tours that we have are going to be in October and November. We're going to be touring the Evanston Envisaged Design, Sarah Kleiner's modular home in Evanston, Cincinnati, Ohio. And they're going for LEED Gold. And then we'll be touring the Sykes residence in Cincinnati, Clifton in Cincinnati, another Seoul design project. So look for those promotions and announcements through the USGBC emails. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you, Chuck.
thank you
Thank
very
you all.
much. And I did want to say that we have the contact information for everybody if you'd like to get in touch with Urban Stead Cheese, Seoul Design and Consulting, or Chuck's organization, or USGBC Ohio. We're here to help however we can. I did want to open it up if there were, we have a few minutes, if there were any questions. Please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask those questions. It could be of any of our speakers today.
I have a question, please.
So go ahead.
I'm curious to know, are they changing the commercial LEED abatement levels as the same way that they're going to be changing the amount of abatements for the residential program?
Yes, this is Senyog from Seoul Design Consulting. Yeah, so they did renegotiate with the school district, and the tax abatement is lower than what it used to be before. So previously, when Scott and Andrea applied for it, they were able to get it in for the 75% tax abatement, 25% going to school. But that has been adjusted again, where more of the portion goes to the school now. So I think it's right now, don't quote me on this, you probably should talk to the city, but it's somewhere around 65% as opposed to 75%.
And I'm curious also, Sanyag, while we have the opportunity to have you on the call, what, anecdotally, what percentage of your projects fall into the gold and the platinum residential categories? I mean, there's a slight reduction in the gold and the silver. However, going down from unlimited to 650 on platinum, I just didn't know how much that was going to impact the new construction residential aspect of LEED abatements.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And for our business, David, it's not as clear for us because we do a lot of diverse work. It's not just single family, we do multifamily, we do commercial projects as this one is. So our portfolio is really actually quite diverse, not just in terms of different types of certifications, different levels of certifications, and also regionally. It's not just based in Cincinnati either. I think we do projects actually over about 20, 30 states. So, but to narrow it down to just residential projects that are in the city of Cincinnati, there are two things. I think, yeah, the tax abatement will get adjusted to 650 instead of being unlimited. But the ability to get projects to platinum, that actually got easier over, if you compared projects to like 5 years ago under LEED version 3, just very quickly, projects had to have like some sort of solar panels and a stormwater management, renewable energy and stormwater management to get to platinum. That was almost became like the recipe to get projects to platinum. But more recently under the LEED version 4.1, which Nate pointed out that, from version 3, LEED made it version 4, which became really difficult. And then they realized that they made it too difficult, where people are like shying away from it. So they came up at 4.1, which sort of made it a little bit more achievable, and they reduced some of the pain points of it. That benefit really is helping those single family projects that want to go to platinum. So the target of getting projects to platinum is a little bit less daunting than what it used to be. So that's a benefit on one side. And the adjustment to the tax abatement, I think that's more of a economic development issue that the city is trying to incentivize more of the sort of middle tier projects as opposed to the $1 million projects.
Well, that's true, but they reduced the gold for $62,000, and I mean, from a real estate standpoint, it's a good thing, particularly marketing wise, to help sell homes at the mid to upper range to have those kind of abatements. And if the platinum, unlimited is really pushing the market to cut that off at the knees, I mean, I just don't know how it's going to affect the total number of new projects going forward in terms of, new construction in particular, because I mean, it's nice to have that abatement, but the best part about it is for those of us like ourselves that are on this call, it's nice to be able to have more and more, resource efficient homes built in our community.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I would completely agree.
That was going to affect the market. I mean, I don't think it's going to affect it much at LEED and silver and gold, but at the platinum level, it could have a huge impact on the number of new construction projects that might go for that level.
Yeah, it does go into effect next year. So we still have about a good 8 to 9 months to still get projects in the door, or under the current version, much similar to we were talking about Andrea and Scott's project, that we had missed just by literally like a couple of weeks to get it into version 3. Although no regrets. I mean, Andrea, Scott, we got through and you got your
we
tax
have a
abatement,
question
but,
for
yeah.
Andrea and Scott. Alicia would like to know more about your closed loop system, the recycling water in the cheese making process.
You have an insider. Alicia is a customer of the shop, a long time customer of the shop, a neighbor, but also she kindly wrote the article for, correct me if I'm wrong, Mary Ellen, is it the USGBC publication?
Yeah, it's on the global website. It's also on the USGBC Ohio website. I'll go ahead and put that link in. Yeah.
And interestingly, the American Cheese Society shared that article yesterday as well with our entire community of cheesemakers. And
wonderful.
Throughout the industry yesterday. So that was really exciting. So thank you, Alicia and Mary Ellen, for putting that together. But Alicia and I talked about the closed loop system, and I'm going to let Scott talk about it because it is pretty technical and he can speak better to it, but it's a really unique aspect of this project.
Yeah, well, our closed loop system, as far as our cheese making process, he touched a little, Sanyog's team touched on it a little bit earlier about how we have to heat our milk up to 145 to legally pasteurize it. We have to, and then at that point, we have to cool it down to about 90 degrees in order to really start the cheese making process. So it's the right temperature for all our cultures. In order to efficiently do that as well as possible, we installed a dry cooler on our roof, which basically acts as a large radiator. It works extremely well in the wintertime. So we have a closed loop glycol system that we use to heat and cool the vat. But when in the middle of the winter, after our milk is heated up to 145, we're trying to cool it down to 90. We need to create a lot of energy to cool that. In the wintertime, we just pump the glycol through this radiator system, the dry cooler on the roof, and it basically dumps it into the atmosphere without having to use mechanical tons of cooling compressors to cool the milk down back to where we need it at 90 degrees. Very efficient, just like your house would be cooled. It saves us incredible amount of energy throughout the wintertime. When it is 40 degrees or below, we don't even have to have our chillers on to cool our milk at all.
It's pretty cool. There's a panel in the cheese making room. You know, Chris talked about monitoring of all of this, and some of our equipment it allows us to monitor it, that we can actually look at that panel on the wall and it'll tell us. I mean, there's times that we're saving like 40, is it 40,000?
Like 200,000 BTUs per hour that we can be saving at its max efficiency.
Yeah. And so extrapolate that over, right now we're only making cheese every other week. We've scaled it back because of the pandemic. We're getting ready to scale that back up. But if you extrapolate that over an increased production load, that's a lot of energy, and it saves us a lot of energy. I mean, it was a full disclosure. It was a very, very expensive system. We made some really expensive decisions, but the upside is the gained energy savings over future time, because we always talk about in Urban Stead world, this is about the long game. This is not about the short game. And you really have to look at cheese making that way. And that's kind of how we looked at this project when we did made these decisions.
Thank you so much. That's so innovative of you to show that leadership, to make that investment. And obviously the cost benefit was worth it, but but thank you for that leadership. That's amazing. We do have another minute or two if there's another question.
Where is your cheese sold other than your physical location, please? Your local Cincinnati.
So that list is longer than I can list, and that list is maintained on our website.
Oh, okay, cool.
You can go to find our cheese, but I'll just give you a few highlights. So we distribute all the way from Mayville, New York to Cleveland to Nashville to Indianapolis and everywhere in between. We have retail partners, but we also have cheese shop partners as well as a lot of restaurant partners. So if you're downtown, Madison's at Finley Market has a fabulous selection of our cheese. If you're across the river, Butler's Pantry at the River Center has a great selection of our cheese. If you're up in the northern, up in Dayton, Dorothy Lane Market carries some of our cheeses. If you're out on the east side, Lear's Market and Harvest Market all carry our cheese. So some of those are some of our retail partners. In the Cincinnati area, you know, our neighbors at Branch use our cheese. Ripple Wine Bar, Red Feather, Cora downtown at the Kinley Hotel uses our cheese. Salazar, Catch a Fire at Mad Tree uses our cheese. Northside Yacht Club, that's uses a lot of our cheese. They use a lot of cheese. Littlefield, Morsel and Nosh. I mean, the list is really, I'm proud to say it's
great.
really extensive.
I'll
There's
have to try
probably
it out.
100 retail partner or 100 wholesale partners. And, you know, it's.
If I'm going to try one cheese, which one would you recommend?
That's like asking me to choose a
I
favorite
know.
child.
But what cheese are you most proud of? What do you think most people think about when they come to your, you know?
It's interesting. I think our street ched probably is my answer to that. I think that our cloth bound cheddar, which less than 1% of cheddar made in the world today is done traditionally like we make it.
Usually it's made like it's packaged day one and put into plastic and it's aged in a refrigerator. We're aging in 92% humidity for 28 months. The cheese gets to breathe. It's really unique.
Well, that perked my ears early on in the call, you know, when you talked about cloth bound, because I'm like, wow, does anybody do that? So I'll have to try that then. Thanks.
Yeah.
And then Quark is also a wonderful cheese that when we created this project, we really were so fond of Quark that we really wanted to bring it back to Cincinnati with Cincinnati's great German roots and Quark being a staple in the German cuisine. And it's been so embraced, and people that didn't know what Quark was are now coming in weekly to buy it. Has been a wonderful thing for us. And so those are the two cheeses, completely different, that I think that if your first time to Urban Stead, you must try.
Yeah. You made 360 pounds of Quark this week?
Yep.
Yeah. And we have 50 pounds left. That was made on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And 310 pounds of that have already left the building.
I love it. Alicia says, try the Quark with honey and blueberries.
Yes. Again, she's an insider.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, this has been so educational. So I just wanted to thank Chuck for putting this together and our sponsors. And of course, the team at Seoul Consulting, Design and Consulting. But thank you, Andrea Robbins and Scott Robbins, for your leadership. And I just can't wait to go to DLM and get some cheese. So thank you so much for everything. And we look forward to sharing your story.
Thank you all. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your support. Thank you to Seoul for helping us through this process that we obviously had very little to know about when we started. We're incredibly proud to be Silver LEED certified, and we're proud to be in Cincinnati making cheese.
Well, we're proud to have you part of the team. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Be well.